These women had names. They had lives. Gloria Moody, 26 years old, last seen leaving her bar. Ramona Wilson, just 16 years old, hitchhiking to meet friends. Roxanne Thiara, 15 years old, found murdered near Highway 16 in 1994. Most of them were Indigenous women, forced to hitchhike because public transportation barely existed. Imagine being that young, stepping into a stranger's car, and that's the last time anyone sees you alive. The killers may still be alive. They could be driving that same highway tonight. Welcome back to our channel. On this channel, we talk about mysteries, crime, things that happened out there, especially in Canada. So if you want to know what's going on in Canada, especially for crimes and mysteries and those things that are happening, sit and relax and listen to these stories. Tonight, we travel into the heart of northern British Columbia, a place of breathtaking beauty, endless forests, winding rivers, and mountain shadows that seem to go on forever. But along this stretch of wilderness lies a road that holds one of Canada's darkest secrets. Locals call it Highway 16. The rest of the world knows it as the Highway of Tears. For decades, women and girls are vanished here without a trace. One moment they were seen walking along the shoulder of the road, the next gone. No witnesses, no clues, only silence and fear left behind. As the years passed, families begged for answers, police searched, communities protested, and yet the disappearances continued. Imagine this. You're driving along Highway 16 in northern British Columbia. The road is long, remote, surrounded by endless forests. Now imagine seeing a single pair of abandoned shoes, a tattered jacket, a missing poster fluttering in the cold wind. This is the reality of the Highway of Tears. For decades, women have vanished along this lonely road. Some found murdered, others never seen again. Nearly 70 years later, we still ask, why does the Highway of Tears claim so many lives? Type "I'm here" in the chat so I know you're with me tonight. So go ahead and type "I am here" so I know you're with me tonight, because we are going deep into the spookiness of Highway 16 in northern British Columbia in Canada. Highway 16 stretches nearly 725 kilometers. To most, it's just another Canadian road, but to families, it's a road of sorrow. Since the late 1960s, at least 40 women have disappeared or been murdered here. Some experts say the number is closer to 80. And here's the part that sends chills down my spine. And I know it's going to be sending chills down your spine as well. Many of these disappearances happened in broad daylight, on an open road, and yet no one saw anything. Let me know in the chat, would you ever hitchhike on a lonely road like this? Type yes or no. If you would hitchhike on a lonely road as this that is described, say yes. If not, say no in the chat. These women had names. They had lives. Gloria Moody, 26 years old, last seen leaving her bar. Ramona Wilson, just 16 years old, hitchhiking to meet friends. Roxanne Thiara, 15 years old, found murdered near Highway 16 in 1994. Most of them were Indigenous women, forced to hitchhike because public transportation barely existed. Imagine being that young, stepping into a stranger's car, and that's the last time anyone sees you alive. If you feel their pain, type justice in the chat. Go ahead, type justice in the chat. For years, families begged for help, but their voices were ignored. Police often labeled missing women as runaways. It wasn't until much later that the Highway of Tears was even recognized as a national tragedy. This is not just a crime story. It's a story of how society failed these women. Do you think law enforcement did enough in these cases? Type yes or no in the chat. Who is responsible? Some believe multiple serial killers stalked this highway. Others think organized crime and human trafficking networks targeted vulnerable women. And some whisper darker theories that powerful men may have been involved, their crimes covered up. What's terrifying is this: the killers may still be alive. They could be driving that same highway tonight. Tell me in the chat, do you believe it's one serial killer or many? Type one or many in the chat. In a country as vast as Canada, one lonely road has become a symbol of loss, injustice, and silence. The Highway of Tears is not just history. Women are still going missing. So tonight, we speak their names. We demand answers, and we refuse to forget. Because somewhere out there, someone still knows the truth. In the summer of 1994, 15-year-old Roxanne Thiara was living in Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. She was bright, funny, and like many teens, figuring out her path in life. But Roxanne was also vulnerable, struggling with the challenges of being young in a tough environment. One night, she was last seen in the downtown area of Prince George. When she didn't come home, worry quickly spread. A week later, her body was found along Highway 16, the very road that had already claimed so many lives. Roxanne's murder was never solved. To this day, her family has no answers, and she was just 15, a child. Her story shows the terrible truth of the Highway of Tears. Victims were often young, Indigenous, and overlooked. Roxanne should have had her whole life ahead of her, but instead, she became part of a heartbreaking pattern that families are still fighting to break. The story of Ramona Wilson in 1994. On June 11, 1994, 16-year-old Ramona Wilson left her home in Smithers, BC, British Columbia. She was heading out to a friend's graduation party. Like many others in her community, she hitchhiked to get around. But that night, Ramona never made it to the celebration. Her disappearance set off panic in Smithers. Friends, family, and volunteers searched for her everywhere. Months turned into years with no answers. Then, in April 1995, her remains were discovered near the Smithers airport. She had been murdered. Ramona's death devastated her family and sparked outrage in her community. Her mother became an advocate, speaking out about the dangers Indigenous women faced and the lack of attention these cases received. Even today, Ramona's case remains unsolved. Her story is one of many that fuels the call for justice along the highway of tears. The story of Madison Scott, 2011. Fast forward to May 28, 2011. 20-year-old Madison Scott, known as Maddie to her loved ones, was a young woman full of energy and warmth. She lived in Vanderhoof, BC, and was excited to camp overnight at Oxback Lake for a friend's birthday party. The next day, everyone packed up and left, but Madison never came home. When searchers arrived at the site, they found her tent and truck left behind, but no trace of her. For years, her family and community refused to give up. Posters with her face lined the towns, vigils were held, and volunteers searched tirelessly. Finally, in May 2023, 12 years later, Madison's remains were discovered, not far from where she disappeared. While the discovery gave her family a measure of closure, the questions still remain. What really happened to Madison Scott? Her case shows that even in recent years, the highway of tears continues to claim lives and leave unanswered questions. The story of Tamara Chipman, 2005. Tamara Chipman was 22 years old, a young Indigenous woman from the Wet'suwet'en Nation and a mother to a 2-year-old son. She had dreams like anyone her age, to work, to travel, to build a better life for her little boy. On September 21st, 2005, Tamara was last seen hitchhiking east of Prince Rupert along Highway 16, the same stretch of road that had already become notorious as the Highway of Tears. She was heading to Prince George but never arrived. Her friends and family searched tirelessly, putting up posters and organizing search parties. They hoped every day for a call, a clue, something. But Tamara was never found. Her father, Tom Chipman, later said that the hardest part isn't grief, it's not knowing. Her disappearance became one of the key cases that reignited national attention to the Highway of Tears, reminding Canadians that the violence was still happening and the women were still disappearing. Story of Delphine Nicol, 1990. It was June 1990 when 15-year-old Delphine Nicol left her home in Smithers, BC, planning to visit a cousin. She was hitchhiking, a common and often necessary way to get around in rural parts of northern British Columbia. Delphine was vibrant, funny, and close to her family. Her disappearance left a deep hole in the community. When she didn't come home, her family raised the alarm immediately. Police began searching, but days turned into weeks, then months. Delphine was never found. Her family has waited for answers for more than 30 years. In that time, her name has become one of the most haunting reminders of dangers along Highway 16, a symbol of a generation of Indigenous girls who were never given the protection or justice they deserved. Delphine's story, like so many others, represents the silence that Indigenous families have fought to break. The silence that kept their daughters' stories from being told. The story of Alberta Williams, 1989. In August 1989, Alberta Williams had just celebrated the end of summer with her sister and friends in Prince Rupert. Alberta was 24, kind, fun-loving, and deeply connected to her family. She had plans, ambitious, and a future she was looking forward to. But that night, Alberta disappeared. A few weeks later, her body was found near Tayi Overpass, just off Highway 60. She had been murdered. Her sister Claudia took up the search for justice. She later hosted a CBC podcast called Missing and Murdered. Who killed Alberta Williams? Determined to uncover the truth, Claudia's courage brought Alberta's story to light and helped expose the wider issue. How so many Indigenous women were being silenced. Alberta's story isn't just tragedy, it's a family's fight for justice that continues decades later. Story of Bonnie Joseph, 2007. Bonnie Joseph was 31 years old, from the Nadia Wotton First Nation near Fort St. James. Her family described her as loving, free-spirited, and deeply connected to her culture. On September 8, 2007, Bonnie went missing near the Fraser Lake area, just off Highway 60. She was last seen walking along the road, heading to a friend's home. She never arrived. Her family spent years searching, hoping for any sign of her. For them, every news story about a discovery along the highway was a moment of fear and heartbreak. To this day, Bonnie remains missing. Her story, like so many others, is a reminder that the highway of tears isn't the story of the past. It's ongoing. Families are still searching. The tears haven't stopped falling. If you believe their stories should never be forgotten, type in the chat, never forgotten, never forgotten, never forgotten. And don't forget to share so that more people is aware of Highway 16 so they do not go missing. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like these, so together we can keep shining a light on Canada's darkest mysteries. Like this page if you like these stories. See you soon in my next video. Thanks for watching.